Good morning. My name is Becky Allen, and this morning I'd like to talk to you about a mandatory therapy cap for school-based occupational therapists. So the school-based caseloads at this point, they're oftentimes very heavy. They don't support our ability to not only serve our students, but also complete all of those other workload duties that we have. So, what is the big deal? For those of you who don't work in an educational model or have no familiarity with the schools, kind of wanted to set the stage for you. This is kind of my scenario, but imagine being an occupational therapist and committed to helping students achieve their goals. But there are about 8 to 9 meetings each week. We have 3 to 4 student evaluations each week. We have consultations with teachers in 5 different schools, weekly progress reporting and other paperwork. And oh, did I mention that there are only about 4 blocks of time to pull students during the day? And this blocks of time are not only just for occupational therapy, but any other services that the child might receive, such as speech language therapy, counseling time, or physical therapy. So given these heavy caseloads and this inequitable sort of workload, caseload balance, some of the barriers to service delivery, because that's really kind of where we're seeing is it's our inability to consistently serve our students. But so the IEP meetings that I talked about earlier, these are not only IEP meetings, but also what we call eligibility meetings to be able to determine whether or not, as a result of our evaluations, if a child is actually eligible for special education services. At the moment, I'm currently averaging about 8 to 9 meetings per week. The meeting duration is about 1.5 to 2 hours per meeting. It just kind of depends on sort of what the issues are, if the parents have a lot of questions, those kinds of things. In my district at the moment, I serve 5 different schools. I've done this for about 3 years. I work in preschool, elementary, middle, and high school. The variety of students and challenges and different ages and stages are, it's very interesting. It's very sort of a good challenge therapeutically, but to say that I'm stretched thin, it would be an understatement. The paperwork requirements, paperwork and other duties that we have in our district. We have a quick screening of each kindergarten student for fine motor difficulties at the beginning of the year. So what that means is that at the beginning of the school year, I will need to lay eyes on every single elementary school or kindergarten student in elementary schools within the first, I think it's about a week and a half of school. I currently serve 2 elementary schools, so I'm looking at having to look at each student over across about 9 to 10 kindergarten classrooms, and that all needs to happen in a very short period of time. The student evaluations, very important part of our work, but I average about 3 to 4 per week, and it's not unusual for me to have multiple evaluations in progress at the same time. We're also, because of all of our other responsibilities and the high caseload and high number of students that we're treating, we don't have any dedicated time for report writing or IEP writing. So as I stated earlier, one of the major ethical concerns for me and for other occupational therapists is that we are missing services. And in the school setting, that's almost it feels like it's becoming a little bit more normalized, at least to myself. And this is not why I became a therapist. Missing services shouldn't be normalized. And, as occupational therapists, providing services to our clients, it should be our number one priority. In doing some research on this issue, Soroya and Garfinkel conducted a national survey of school-based OTs in 2020, and they found that 55% reported difficulties with consistently providing services as mandated in student IEPs. 60% reported caseloads that were too high and didn't allow for management of all workload responsibilities. Some of those frequently reported workload barriers include meeting attendance that I spoke about earlier, screenings and evaluations, and just sort of like larger school scheduling issues. Field trips. We can't schedule during specials. They have pep rallies and all those types of things that are sort of a normal part of a kid's day, and we want them to be a part of. But they do present some scheduling challenges for us. One solution to this particular issue would be instituting a mandatory therapy cap. So a mandatory therapy cap, it would set a firm upper limit on the number of treatment hours per therapist or the number of students per therapist, which would allow for a better workload balance and reduce those ethical concerns regarding missed student services. While we miss these student services, currently the workload number of kids, there's not a whole lot of time to be able to provide makeup services. So we do them where and when we can. However, it's not something that we have sort of a dedicated block of time to address these issues. I currently work in the state of Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, and our SLPs actually have a therapy cap in the state of Georgia, and it's 55 students per SLP. A lot of this, the reason why the SLPs have it, there's been a lot of advocacy work on the part of their organizations in order to make sure that their therapists are getting, the right workload balance. So no such therapy cap currently exists for school-based OTs. And interesting to me is that there's more than 20% of OTs that currently work in the school setting. So there's a huge number of us that are being impacted by these high caseloads, this imbalance in workload. But we've not quite been able to get it together in order to organize and say that this is something that would really benefit us and also our students. So a suggested format for communication in order to advocate for this particular issue. For me, I feel like a face-to-face or virtual meetings would be most effective. It gives us an opportunity to kind of connect with people and also kind of relay those personal experiences and, kind of give them a better understanding regarding the actual impact on students, on services, on student progress. I think I would first start with lobbying AOTA for advocacy on this issue at both the federal and the state levels. That's really where I think we could galvanize a lot of support for change on a national level. We could also start with our state Department of Education at each individual state. And then finally, also the federal Department of Education. To me, that's sort of like a last resort, but I definitely think getting AOTA on board with this and also making your states, your individual state departments of education aware of these issues and what their impact is would be an effective way to start to examine this issue and maybe affect some positive change. So this last slide is just the references that I used for this presentation. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you listening.